Just a quick reminder, really quick. Our giveaway is still running for all of you wonderful people. The submissions have been amazing. We're absolutely loving your self-care rituals and loves. Honestly, it's been my best part of the week, flicking through all your answers and responses. It's just amazing. So please keep sending them in. Get involved for the chance to win such an amazing prize, of which you can see on our social medias. To get involved is super simple. Follow us on Instagram at @GaleneCompany_, and fill in our little giveaway questionnaire, which is what I was just talking about. Linked in the description below. That's all. That's it. That's all you have to do. Get involved. The Galene Woman struggles with trendy self-care. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Galene Woman podcast, where self-care is always the main topic of the day. I'm your host, Cole, and everybody should know the usual drill by now, but if you don't, before I start any episode, you, and I mean the person that is listening, I have to be doing something entirely for yourself right now. And I am contractually obligated to say this, so go and do it. If you are working or, God forbid, studying right now, go take your Pomodoro 5-minute break? Or if you're on your commute, maybe close your eyes and pretend you're not on a train right now, underground, and that you're in some wonderful Polynesian beach. Maybe. Can you tell I've been watching the Olympic surfing? Whatever you do, for the entirety of this episode, you need to do something just for yourself. Because you deserve it. And that's kind of it. Right. Trendy self-care. This week's episode. What am I talking about? Why do I think it's worth talking about? And overall thoughts, all that jazz. We're going to be getting into it. I am really excited for this episode because I do feel like when most people think of self-care, you are thinking of the bubble bath, the fluffy socks, the woman with the infrared face light thing on her face with the massive Stanley Cup next to her while she's watching something on her laptop in bed. And while that is self-care, and you know that I am never going to ever diss anyone for what they want to do as self-care, I am going to be talking about the online space and what I think about it, because I do think it's important that when you are coming and figuring out your own self-care, you acknowledge what is real, what is realistic for you and your life, because that's what this is about, and what is portrayed online. You know, I am well aware that the world we see on the screen and the world in real life every day is a big difference. There's a few things that overlap, but there's also a lot that you and I just both know that person just does not do on a regular basis. And again, not that everything you see is bad or impossible to do, but a big part of this season is honesty and actually getting real about what it means to look after yourself. And I don't know how to articulate this. A lot of what we see on TikTok, on Instagram, I don't think it's that honest. And that's okay, because it's a space where people are creating content. That's a very different ballgame to real life. But it's not realism. Don't get me wrong. A self-care day where you literally do does exist. You know, where you sit and watch every episode of Grey's Anatomy ever while wearing one of those weird foot mask things that peel off all the skin, and you eat every single sweet thing in your cupboard, and you've had iced matcha twice already today. You know, those days do exist, but everything showers every single day, or the 2-hour-long morning routine, that's not me, babe. It's not me, and maybe it is you. I'm actually so intrigued to know how you do that. Please leave your comments, because I would love to know what you do for a living, if that is your life. I want some answers. I do feel like, though, when I was writing this episode, when I was reflecting on what I really wanted to say, TikTok is worse than Instagram. Maybe I should put a poll. Maybe I should put like a little, which one do we think does this worse? But yeah, I feel like TikTok is worse for this particular kind of content that you see than Instagram. And I'm going to stress this again. I don't think it's bad content. I just think it's portraying something that, I don't know, doesn't make people feel good about themselves. There's something about TikTok self-care videos. You know, you type it in the little search bar and the self-care days come up. They are their own niche. They're great in so many ways, but they aren't real life. That's kind of it. That's kind of all I feel like I'm saying. They're perpetuating a kind of self-care that and personal time that is really just not possible for all of us. And I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you are definitely one of those people that looks at those videos and thinks, I can't do that, and it's okay, you know? And for me, that has a huge impact upon the way we come to approach self-care as individuals, having consumed that content, because it kind of takes the self, the personal, the individual, the me, the you, out of self-care, if that makes sense. It's, you know, removing the actionability, the ability to go and do what's being shown to you, not possible. You know, that's not you, if that makes sense. I always try and make Galene self-care content when I'm giving specific examples of things you can do every day that are mindful, or hair care tips, or skincare tips. I'm trying to make sure that everything I tell you is actually something you could do, whether you have 5 minutes or 25 minutes, you know? And maybe that makes it less aesthetic, maybe that makes it less pretty and, you know, watchable. But at least I know, and at least you can guarantee that everything I do, you can do too. And afford it. I guess that's always the other bit, isn't it? I've definitely said this before, but just because you can't buy the Sol de Janeiro body butter, the Tree Hut scrub, and the Way hair care routine does not mean your self-care is any less valid than the person you are watching. Those products are great, and if you want them, go for it. You know, that's absolutely for you to judge if that's something you want out of your self-care. I'm not here to pass judgment on that. I'm just telling you that if you can't, for whatever reason, you don't have to have them, and it doesn't make you any less good at self-care or caring for yourself than that person in that video. I hope that makes you feel validated, because it certainly makes me feel validated. Because you and I both know that the trendy self-care and the bubbles that it incorporates will often tell you otherwise. You know, that skincare routine, that hair care routine, the body care routine, the fitness routines, you know, even some of the mindfulness, you know, people's like meditations and journal habits and things like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm a journaler, but there is nothing aesthetic about 3 minutes that I spend before I go to bed journaling that people would want to see. Do you know what I mean? So, crux of this episode is me trying to tell you, you don't need to compare. Let's get it simple and straight from this point onwards. You do not have to compare what you do on a regular basis to make yourself feel good, rested, reset, refocused, whatever that looks like for you in that 20 minutes to an hour to the 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. That's yours. And that's all that matters. Not TikTok, not Instagram, not any influencer in the world, you. That's what. I feel like the reason this is so important for me, other than just, you know, running a self-care platform, is there's a lot of judgment, or perhaps a better phrasing is subliminal messaging coming under these routines that we all receive when we watch these videos. And it's a big reason why I wanted to come into this space, because I'm not the most aesthetic person on the planet, and I try and make Galene fun and cute and pretty, but like that's not why I'm here. You know, I'm not a Pinterest inspiration board. I'm actually trying to give you something you can use. And you know, when you see those videos, it's telling you that if your routines or if your life doesn't look like mine, or it doesn't have these products, it's not good enough. And that's just so out of whack. It's like, it's so wrong, and it's so painful, because then people end up bullying themselves when they're like, oh, I can't spend an hour every morning doing this routine, or I can't do this, that, and the other, and beating themselves up about how they live their life, when in reality, there's probably a lot of things you do on a regular basis that you find relaxing, that is perfectly good enough and perfectly acceptable. But just because you couldn't stick it in a TikTok video just doesn't change that fact. I also really, really think it portrays that I'm better than you idea. And I really hate that. I really, really hate that. That, because this person can do X, Y, and Z, that they're somehow living a life that's better than yours, and that makes them better than you as a person. And it's just like, that's so not true. And, I was talking to my mum about this the other day, like, it infiltrates every single generation in a completely different way, I think. Like, for me, it's about the best students. It's about the people that are graduating and getting these like crazy ass new jobs with super high pay rises, and they work their butts off all the time, and they still have time to go to the gym and do all these, restful, fun, social things. But for my mum, it's like, it's the wife with the perfect husband, the soulmate, the kids that are just like angelic, who are really career worthy and have pushed themselves really hard, but they also have all this time to do housework and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure that if you think about however old you are right now, that you have the picture, whether that's marriage, kids, the career, that whatever part in life you're facing, even if you're not at that point, even if you're older than that, you have an image of what the perfect life is because of what you've been told on social media. And I really, really hate that that's the way it's kind of become. I do think it's true. I just really, really despise that so many people feel superior because they can portray themselves online in a way that is not even vaguely realistic to who they are. And that permeates self-care too. That permeates your personal time and your time of leisure as much as any other aspect of our lives. You see these videos of 14, 15-year-olds cracking out the drunk elephant, cracking out the most expensive kit known to man, because for whatever reason their parents have decided that that's something that they're allowed. And okay, good for them, but no way on earth, one, would I have been allowed that. Oh my god, turning around to my mum being like, hey, can I have like a £45 moisturiser just so I can sit and make a video about it? The look I would have got. It just makes me think of like that dynamic that we have in real life of, when you're in secondary school, primary school, in work, in social groups, those lovely, lovely years of secondary school. Oh, it makes me feel so good about myself. And the popular girls did X, Y, Z. And I can imagine that right now that's, things like buying self-care products that meant that they were cool. And it meant that anybody else that didn't engage in that wasn't cool. And I just really, really hate that energy has been brought into something that has nothing to do with anybody or nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. Your self-care is your own. And, trendy stuff should not be infiltrating how you feel about that. So there you go. I feel like that was a major tangent, and I hope you enjoy witnessing Cole reminiscing about her secondary school years. They were so much fun. With peace and love, you don't have to be like anyone but you, okay? If your routine has all those little luxuries, all those things that you do see online and you can afford to do it, go for it. Full support. I am actually so behind you. But if your routine is literally reading in the garden for 15 minutes, going on a jog walk, or spending 15 minutes at your office, at your desk kind of thing, and just taking some mindful breaths, I am supporting you on exactly the same level as everyone else. There is no difference between how I see any personal care, self-care routines. I just don't. For me, it's about what feels good for you and how Galene can support you through that, how you can support yourself, how you can find support through everyone else. It's like, just don't bring the bad juju into something that is entirely personal. Okay, that's it, that's done. Your routine is yours. It does not have to be TikTok worthy to be valid. If you guys want to see my day-to-day unfiltered self-care routine with none of the frills, I will absolutely show you. But honestly, it will not look good in a video. I can promise you that, because I don't feel like it has to be. And that's, the most important thing. I will leave a poll in the description for you guys. If you want to see my unfiltered self-care routine on a regular basis, because I'm telling you now, I think it might shake up the self-care world. I'm that powerful. No, I don't think that. But I do think for those of you who follow and listen to the podcast, you'll get what I mean and why this has been so important to me. So what do I actually want to see in the online self-care space? I feel like that's the question we are left with after that exploration of what we all know and we can all envisage, because I think that's where we need to move forward. I think that's where the change needs to happen. And obviously everything has its place, and the girlies with the aesthetic videos, keep doing what you're doing, because sometimes you do need an inspirational Pinterest board of pretty pink, blue things to get yourself going. Sometimes that is what you need, especially when you are motivated. But what I really, really think we need in the online space, and I don't necessarily know if we'll get that, but it's worth saying, I think, is a celebration of the hard stuff that doesn't look like the hard stuff that's included in your self-care. Like getting up out of bed and brushing your teeth and making sure you did just put some moisturiser on in the morning, or that you got out of bed before 8:30, because right now that is a win for me. And a celebration of the mundane. I think that's also really important. Taking the dog out for 15 minutes is a win in my head. Getting out of bed, doing all the things you got to do, having regular showers, making sure that you don't look like a rat's nest. I honestly, sometimes that's the kind of self-care we're talking about, and sometimes that needs to be celebrated because a lot of people are in that situation and it's overlooked. And just genuinely celebrating self-care that involves someone you love, the ones you love, is also really important, because for some people, just reconnecting with those around you is also really important. And that's not seen enough, I don't think, of reaching out to those you care about, being like, hey, I'm having a really hard time right now, or I'm really overwhelmed, and just talking it out. And now I'm not talking about people sitting there and recording those kind of conversations. I do not think that will necessarily be helpful, but acknowledging that you've had those kind of conversations, I think would be really, really great. I think would make us realise, especially those of us who suffer with our mental health, or even don't suffer with your mental health, any person can get overwhelmed, feel anxious. When you're having those moments, knowing that there are other people out there who felt brave enough to go and ask for help, that will change the world, man. That stuff, that's what makes us better. The online space is always going to be striving for perfect. I get that. But we can always try and put the honest stuff out there. And outside of all of that, we don't have to do jack anything to make it look aesthetic or worthy of the online world. You and I don't have to care about what our self-care looks like, just as long as we're doing it and we're looking after ourselves. I think that in itself is all that matters. I'm just excited that you're listening in and trying to figure out what self-care is for you, because that's a perfect start. I feel like that's what you got to do. If you want a Pinterest board of inspiration, go for it. But also ask yourself all those under the surface questions. Don't keep it on the tip of the iceberg, hoping that the magic fairy will come and do the rest, and that if you do your pretty pink self-care, TikTok-worthy routine, that it will solve all your problems. Actually ask yourself those questions around your personal time that will make a difference. What actually feels restful for you? And if you don't know, totally okay, but give yourself the space to figure it out, What do you do when you're supposed to be resting, but that you're actually not really resting and it doesn't actually help? Are you on your phone? I know, I do it too. Are you on your phone? Are you saying yes to events you don't want to go to? Girly, just say no. It's okay. You're not going to lose your friend just because you say no. And if you do, they're probably not worth it anyway. Are you secretly still working? Are you checking those emails when you absolutely should not be checking those emails? I will come and clip you around the ear if you're doing that. Nobody should be checking their emails when you're supposed to be resting. Are you doing household tasks that genuinely could actually be left till tomorrow with no consequences? Trust me, I know them all. I've done them all. I've seen them all. I know all your little secrets about what you're doing to prevent yourself from resting. I do. So ask yourself, is it okay if I just stop doing this and go and rest? And the answer should be yes. Of course. Sometimes seeking out the answers to your peaceful living through your pen, through your brain, through some paper will actually change the game about how you see your day-to-day rest, week-to-week rest, literally everything you do all the time. And don't get me wrong, those mental barriers as to why you don't think you deserve the break or why that break is really hard for you to take, or all the external barriers, they don't just have to be in your head of why taking a break is difficult for you. It's going to be a part of that process, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming because there are so many people, including myself, who are ready and willing to help you start that process and figure out what that looks like for you. And also, as George Michael would say, you gotta have faith. Okay? You actually do. Have a little faith in yourself that you can actually do something that scares the heck out of you, but that scary confrontation with your daily pesky habits that are keeping you tired, overworked, and overwhelmed are manageable, and in some cases defeatable and figure outable in whatever way that looks like for you. They're there. It's there. I promise. The answer is actually probably very close. And you deserve that answer. You really, really do. I can almost guarantee that little extra self-awareness you take and by sitting down and answering those questions and figuring out what that looks like for you is not the hardest thing you've ever done. It won't be. There are harder things in life than figuring out what rest looks like in your life. But it should be absolutely a priority. My therapist loves to be that for me. She will absolutely sit there and confront me about whatever thing, whatever habit I am doing, thought pattern usually, that is keeping me in a bad loop of not caring for myself properly. And it helps every single time. And now you may not be in therapy, you may not have a therapist in your life that can sit there and do that for you, but I can guarantee that if you just take that second to actually ask yourself the own question of, is this the right thing to be doing? That will be enough. That will be enough for you to take a step back, put the phone down, put the emails down, put the broomstick down. Not that I think anybody uses a broomstick nowadays, but you know what I mean. and rethink how you're caring for yourself in that moment. And it does take time. But you deserve that time and that space to learn and grow and rest. That's it. Trendy self-care routines that take half a day are not the solutions to your problems. You are. And I think that's quite a good point to end on. Thank you for joining me today on the Galene Woman podcast. And I hope my weekly rambles are keeping you entertained and inspired to embrace the self-care mindset, because genuinely, I truly believe it's the way in which you change the way you live your everyday life. I really do. Integrate those self-care habits and you will notice such a big difference. Next week's episode is actually a first for Galene. We are doing something, we're actually going to be getting a little bit deep, y'all. That is where we are headed. As someone very special to me is coming to join me to have a little bit of a yap, professional yappers as we are. And yeah, keep an eye out for our socials because this is going to be really, really important. It's going to help this season stay real, help me stay honest, and that we stay true to Galene and this podcast and keeping you guys with lots of fun self-care. And yeah, it's going to be a really, really good episode. I'm very, very excited. Stick around for sure. Don't forget about the giveaway. you don't have as much time as you think you do, the final day to do the giveaway is the 15th of August, because on the 16th of August I will be telling the world who won. And I am absolutely loving, I think I said this at the beginning, I'm adoring every answer and submission. They are amazing. People's self-care routines are so wholesome and so brilliant. And also the responses to some of the other questions, I was not anticipating how funny some people are out there in the world. It's amazing. Please, please, please share your thoughts. I genuinely don't think it can get any better. Prove me wrong, please. For more tips and resources on self-care, of course, listen to other episodes of this podcast, but also visit our website, visit our blog, come say hi and connect with us on social media. There's so much stuff out there that we have to look after you and your little self-care routine. Absolutely worth it. Please come say hello. We love when you come and say hello. But until next time, my darling, please take care of yourself and each other, because you deserve it.